I grew up in a quiet, snow-covered suburb where Christmas was always magical. Every year, our neighborhood had a tradition. A man dressed as Santa would walk door to door, handing out candy canes to the kids. It was harmless fun, or so we thought. This particular Christmas Eve, my parents were running late from a holiday party, so I was home alone, watching Christmas movies. Around 9 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Santa standing on the porch, his red suit bright against the falling snow. At first, I was excited. I thought it was the neighborhood Santa, even though it was odd for him to visit so late. When I opened the door, he smiled and handed me a candy cane, but something about him seemed off. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and the beard looked dirty and uneven. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice deep and gravelly. Then he stepped forward, pushing the door open wider. Alarmed, I stepped back and told him my parents would be home any second. His smile faded, replaced by a menacing glare. "I think we both know that's not true," he said. I slammed the door and locked it just as he lunged forward. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. I could hear him pounding on the door, yelling obscenities, until the sound of sirens sent him running into the night. The police found his footprints leading to several other houses, but no one else had opened their doors. That night, I learned the neighborhood Santa had already finished his route hours earlier. I was driving home for Christmas after visiting my college roommate. The highway was mostly deserted, blanketed in snow, with only the faint glow of my headlights cutting through the darkness. About halfway home, I saw someone standing by the side of the road, waving for help. He was wearing a thin coat and no gloves, shivering in the freezing wind. At first, I debated stopping. Picking up a stranger on Christmas Eve didn't seem like the smartest idea, but guilt got the better of me. I pulled over and he jogged to the car, thanking me profusely. As he climbed in, I noticed something strange. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were sharp, almost too sharp. He told me his car had broken down a few miles back and asked if I could take him to the next gas station. The drive was tense. He didn't say much, and every time I glanced at him, he was staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched. I tried to make small talk, but his answers were short and clipped. About 10 minutes into the drive, he casually asked, "So, do you live alone?" My stomach dropped. I lied, telling him I was heading home to a house full of people. His face darkened, and he didn't say another word. We reached the gas station, but instead of getting out, he turned to me and smiled. A cold, predatory smile. "Thanks for the ride," he said, pulling a knife from his coat. Before he could do anything, I slammed my foot on the gas, speeding toward the brightly lit station. The sudden movement threw him off balance, and I swerved to a stop right outside the door. He bolted into the darkness, disappearing into the snow. The gas station clerk called the police, but they never found him. I spent Christmas Day shaken, grateful to be alive. I'll never pick up a hitchhiker again. Christmas Eve was always my favorite night of the year. My family would gather around the fireplace, drinking hot cocoa and sharing stories. But last year, it became a night I'll never forget for all the wrong reasons. It was late, around midnight, and everyone had gone to bed. I stayed up to finish wrapping gifts, the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights keeping me company. As I reached for another roll of wrapping paper, I heard a faint sound coming from the back door, a soft click, like someone was trying to pick the lock. I froze, my heart pounding. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I heard it again, louder this time. Quietly, I grabbed my phone and crept to the kitchen. Through the window, I could see a shadowy figure crouched by the door, fiddling with the lock. Before I could call the police, the door swung open and the man stepped inside. He was wearing a ski mask and carrying a crowbar. My stomach dropped. I ducked behind the counter, trying to keep my breathing quiet. The man moved through the house, rummaging through drawers and filling a sack with anything valuable he could find. When he headed toward the living room, where the Christmas tree and all the gifts were, I knew I had to act. Using my phone's flashlight, I shined a beam directly in his face and screamed as loudly as I could. He stumbled backward, startled, and bolted out the door. The police arrived minutes later, but the man was long gone. We replaced the lock the next day, but I still can't look at our back door without feeling a chill.